The morning feels too quiet, like the world is holding its breath before anyone notices something is wrong. A soft hum settles over the rooms, brushing against the edges of routine as if testing the limits of what should be normal. A chair stands slightly pulled out, a cup cooling beside it, and the silence seems to stretch wider with every second. Somewhere inside, a feeling rises. Thin, sharp, impossible to name, whispering that something has already slipped out of reach. No footsteps, no voices, just a haunting pause between two moments that were supposed to be ordinary. And then the single question settles in the air like dust. How does a family disappear between one phone call and the next? The house sits in a strange half-silence, as if the walls are trying to speak, but the words can't break free. Rooms that should be full of movement feel paused, stiff, holding the shape of morning routines that never finished. A cold cup on the counter, a jacket sleeve caught in the hallway door, a lamp still glowing in the corner. All tiny signs that someone meant to return within minutes, yet every second that passes stretches the mystery thinner until it feels ready to snap. Something is wrong here, deeply wrong, and it lingers like a shadow that refuses to move, even when the light shifts. The question grows heavier. How can normal life stop so suddenly without leaving even a whisper behind? The clock on the wall continues ticking as though nothing unusual has happened, each click a reminder that time is moving forward while the clues remain stuck. The investigator studies the layout of the rooms, searching for any sign that someone might have left in a hurry or someone else entered without warning. But everything feels too balanced, too untouched, as if the morning froze at the precise moment something shifted. The air carries a faint warmth from coffee that never got finished, mixed with the soft echo of steps that should still be there. A desperate question forms in the investigator's mind. Did they walk out willingly? Or were they swallowed by something quiet enough to leave no trace at all? The investigator pauses at the base of the stairs, feeling a strange heaviness that isn't fear but something closer to a question pressing against her chest. The morning should have been predictable. Breakfast, gathering bags, stepping out the door, but instead it feels filled with gaps that don't make sense. Every small item seems to whisper a story missing its ending. A faint chill spreads along the hallway. Not from any open window, but from the sense that something here has gone unfinished. The silence grows thicker, almost expectant, as if waiting for someone to finally notice the detail that changes everything. The moment of discovery arrives quietly, not with panic, but with a sinking certainty that something is deeply broken. A chair left pulled out too far, a door that should be locked standing slightly open, and a ringing silence in a place usually warmed by morning chatter. The investigator feels the weight of the truth settling in. Whatever happened here didn't give anyone time to react. The room seems frozen in a last unfinished breath, holding secrets that hover just beyond reach. And the question repeating in her thoughts is sharper now. What happened between the ringing of one phone and the next that could erase an entire family? The deeper the investigator moves into the house, the stronger the feeling becomes that something ended here without warning. The rooms seem arranged in careful silence, each holding a stillness that doesn't match the warmth the family usually carried with them. There is no sign of panic, no sign of someone rushing out the door, no hints of a sudden struggle. Instead, the space feels paused, mid-thought, as if the morning had begun with normal plans and then folded in on itself. The investigator senses that whatever happened didn't leave chaos behind. It left absence, something far harder to read. A faint echo seems to linger, as though the truth is just behind the next doorway waiting to be noticed. The investigator steps into the kitchen, noticing how untouched everything feels, as if time stopped before anyone had the chance to finish even the simplest chore. The faint smell of toast still lingers in the air, mixed with the soft chill of a house left without movement for hours. A quiet tension floats through the room, the kind that makes the hairs at the back of the neck rise. The lights are off, yet the room doesn't feel dark. only suspended, waiting for someone to return and finish what they started. Each object appears placed with the calmness of habit, making their disappearance feel even more impossible. The question grows sharper. What force interrupts a routine without leaving a trace? Moving toward the back door, the investigator feels the air grow colder, sharper somehow, as if the outside world had pressed against the house at the wrong moment. The door stands almost, but not quite, shut. A small gap letting a thin line of light slice across the floor. It feels intentional yet impossible to interpret. The stillness grows heavier as she imagines the moment before the silence fell, the final seconds that must have held the truth. Something about this door carries weight, like it marks the point where normal life slipped away. The investigator braces herself, sensing that what she's about to find won't offer answers, only more questions. The investigator enters the children's room and feels a shift, a different kind of silence, gentler yet more unsettling. Toys remain arranged neatly on shelves. Blankets lie smooth across the beds, and the faint smell of crayons still lingers in the air. It is a room full of beginnings, unfinished drawings, stacked books waiting to be opened, clothes laid out for the day ahead. But without the children's voices, the quiet feels deeper, carrying a note of something lost. The investigator senses the echo of their morning habits, the energy that should fill the space. Something halted that rhythm, and whatever it was swept through fast and silent, leaving only this untouched calm. The investigator steps into the final room on the first floor, sensing that something in the air feels heavier here, almost charged. This room carries the weight of routine, but also something hidden, a detail waiting to be uncovered. The walls seem to lean inward, pulling attention toward the small desk in the corner. Papers lie scattered, not in chaos, but in a way that suggests interruption, something cut short. The investigator steadies herself, knowing the next clue may not reveal the truth, but will point toward the moment everything changed. A creeping certainty settles in. This house didn't lose its family. They were taken from it by something swift and silent. The investigator replays the first phone call again, listening closely as the steady morning voice drifts through static. Nothing sounds off at first, nothing strange enough to mark the beginning of a disappearance. But the more she listens, the more she senses a thin, almost invisible hesitation woven between ordinary words. There's a pause that feels too long, a breath that doesn't match the conversation. It's the type of detail most people forget the moment it happens. But here, it stands out like a tiny flaw on a clean surface. The tone feels normal, friendly even, yet there's an undercurrent she can't quite define. Something is missing, something unsaid. The silence at the end of the call feels heavier now, like the start of a chain reaction no one noticed in time. The second call feels different from the first, lighter, quicker, almost rushed. Yet, as the investigator replays it, she hears something that wasn't obvious before, a faint echo in the background, like a soft tap or a short breath drawn through tight nerves. It's too subtle to be a sign of fear, but it's enough to unsettle the moment. The tone shifts halfway through the conversation, not drastically, but with the slightest tightening, as if the speaker suddenly became aware of something happening out of view. Nothing in the words suggests danger, yet the silence that follows feels much heavier than the message itself. The investigator senses that the truth lies not in what was said, but in what followed. Those final seconds before the call ended, when something unseen may have reached in and changed the course of the morning. When the investigator first hears about the mysterious voicemail, it doesn't seem possible. A message recorded without anyone noticing, sent from a device that shows no trace of sending it. But once she listens, a chill moves through her. A soft sound, barely audible, rises beneath the static. Something like a tiny gasp or a whispered word cut short. It lasts less than a second, but it feels purposeful, almost urgent. The timestamp is the part that unsettles her the most. It appears exactly 2 minutes after the final call, fitting perfectly between the last confirmed moment and the beginning of the disappearance. It's as if the voicemail slipped through a crack in the timeline, leaving only a shadow of the truth behind. The investigator meets with the last person who spoke to them, hoping for something concrete to ground the falling timeline. His words are careful, steady, but she senses he's sifting through the memory in real time, trying to catch a detail that evaporates each time he reaches for it. He insists the call felt ordinary, casual even, yet there's a slight tremble in the air around his recollection that doesn't match the story. Something about his timing feels just a shade off. Seconds that don't align cleanly with the logs. Moments he can't quite place. It isn't guilt she senses, but uncertainty, as though he witnessed the beginning of the disappearance without realizing it. She leaves with more questions than answers. Back in the quiet of the house, the investigator replays the audio samples again, layering the sounds in her mind. Voices, breaths, faint background noises. Something keeps pulling her attention. A soft echo that appears in both phone calls, faint enough to miss, but steady enough to repeat. It's not feedback, not interference, not anything she can easily explain. It feels like a noise from the same moment appearing in two separate recordings, like a sound that should be shared across different calls. If the echo is real, it means the phone lines captured something happening in the house at the exact same time. The thought sends a sharp chill through her. Whatever happened here didn't start after the calls. It started during them. The investigator watches the driveway recording again, feeling the same unease tightening in her chest. The footage looks simple at first. Just a quiet morning, soft light. A still driveway, but the more she studies it, the more wrong it feels. The frame should capture the family leaving, or at least some sign that the car moved, yet the moment is missing entirely. Everything before and after looks normal, but there's a small slice of time that seems to slip away, like a skipped heartbeat. It's too clean, too smooth, as though the world blinked and took the truth with it. The gap is only seconds long, but it's enough to erase an entire action. She leans closer, knowing this missing piece is no mistake. It's a clue whispering that something interfered with the morning in ways no one expected. She replays the gap again, counting each second under her breath. The footage stutters, freezes, then jumps ahead as though nothing happened. It's not the kind of glitch caused by old wires or cheap equipment. This one feels intentional. Clean, sharp, almost too perfect to be random. The missing seconds fall exactly in the narrow sliver of time between the family's final movements and their disappearance. The more she watches, the more it feels like the recording isn't hiding a mistake, but a moment the world refused to capture. Something passed through that frame, something the camera couldn't hold. She can't shake the feeling that whatever caused it stood close enough to be caught, yet invisible all the same. She logs the exact length of the missing moment, 12 seconds. Just 12. Too short to explain a disappearance, yet long enough to hide something decisive. The gap sits like a clean cut between normal and impossible. A moment sliced out of reality without leaving rough edges. She tries to imagine what can happen in 12 seconds. Voices raised, someone stepping outside, a sudden knock, a door closing, maybe even silence thick enough to swallow everything. The possibilities swirl, pulling her deeper into the gap. She feels the strange weight of a moment that shouldn't be missing at all. 12 seconds shouldn't matter, but somehow they feel like the key to the entire morning. This time she watches the footage frame by frame, refusing to blink. At first, nothing appears. Just the quiet driveway, the morning light, the stillness of a neighborhood waking up. But then, barely visible, a faint shape crosses the edge of the frame at the exact point the footage glitches. It's not a person, not an object, not anything she recognizes. The shape moves without form, like a smear of motion that doesn't belong to the moment. It's too fast, too soft, almost blending into the background. But it's there, and its presence sends a cold ripple down her spine. Cameras don't lie. and they don't imagine things. Whatever that shadow is, it was there when the family vanished. The investigator steps back from the screen, realizing the shadow changes everything. It means the disappearance didn't happen out of sight or beyond the camera's reach. It happened right there, in plain view, wrapped inside 12 seconds. The recording failed to hold. She feels a tight pull in her chest as the truth settles in. Whatever took the family wasn't loud or violent. It was quiet, controlled, and fast enough to slip by unnoticed. The house didn't keep its secrets intentionally. The world simply didn't catch the moment in time. She steadies herself, knowing the next steps will lead deeper into a truth she may not be ready for. But the shadow has already opened a door she can't close. The investigator turns the torn planner page over in her hands, feeling the strange weight of it. The page shouldn't exist where it was found. Miles from the home, tucked beneath fallen branches as if someone placed it with quiet intention. The time written on it, bold, simple, and chilling, matches the exact moment the last call ended. It's almost too perfect, too clean in a clue, as if someone wanted it discovered. She studies the torn edge, noticing how neatly it was ripped, not hurried or panicked. It feels less like evidence and more like a message. Something about the page whispers of planning, of steps taken long before the morning unraveled. She senses that this clue isn't pointing toward the end. It's pointing toward the beginning. The investigator studies the last set of messages, scrolling through a trail of words that seem too calm for what followed. At first, they appear ordinary. Short notes, reminders, quiet exchanges. But hidden in the repetition of phrases is something unsettling. Certain words appear too frequently, woven in like a pattern someone didn't want noticed. A sense of routine almost overshadows the oddity within them. But as she reads deeper, she feels a slow unease rising. There's a gap between the tone of the messages and the reality that came afterward. Something about the final note feels unfinished, like it was meant to continue, but didn't. It's as if the last message marks the edge of a moment where something shifted sharply. When the investigator first sees the strange GPS location, it seems like a mistake. A place far outside the family's routine, somewhere none of them had reason to visit. Yet the timestamp matches the exact minute the second call ended. It's too precise to dismiss. She zooms in, examining the lonely stretch of road, a place surrounded by quiet fields, and nothing else. The stillness of the location makes the clue more unsettling. Something drew their signal there, briefly, like a flicker of presence before disappearing again. She feels a cold ripple as she realizes the ping might mark the moment everything changed. A point on the map where the timeline began to split. Returning to the house brings a deeper weight than before. The silence feels heavier now, shaped by the clues collected over the past days. She walks through each room again, searching not for objects but for what's missing, tiny gaps in the rhythm of the morning. The air seems different, as if something passed through and altered the space without disturbing anything. She senses the family's routines as clearly as footprints. The child who left a drawing half-finished, the adult who meant to return to their coffee, the soft hum of a morning that should have continued. Now every shadow feels like a question. She realizes the house isn't hiding answers, it's showing exactly where they slipped away. As she reviews the family's daily habits, the investigator notices a strange thread running through their routines. A subtle shift that began days before the disappearance. Nothing loud or alarming, just small changes, times that didn't match, objects placed differently, patterns nudged out of their usual path. It feels like something had been weaving into their lives quietly, adjusting their movements in preparation for the morning everything fell apart. She feels a slow chill work its way through her chest. Whatever happened didn't strike without warning. It approached with patience, blending into the familiar until its presence felt normal. And when the moment came, it didn't need force. It only needed timing. The investigator begins sorting through the growing list of people connected to the family, but every name feels like another dead end. Neighbors, coworkers, relatives, each offers fragments of truth that don't fit together. Some speak with calm certainty, others with quiet nerves, yet all claim they saw nothing unusual that morning. She feels tension tightening inside her, the sense that someone knows more than they admit. Motives blur into shadows and timelines twist under scrutiny. Still, nothing points clearly to a threat. The deeper she digs, the more she senses that the culprit may not be a single person at all, but a chain of moments that formed a plan long before anyone realized it. The neighbor's account begins simply, with memories of a quiet morning and the usual sounds drifting through the street. But as the investigator listens closer, small inconsistencies start to surface. Details that shift slightly each time they're repeated. The neighbor insists they saw nothing unusual, yet pauses too long when asked about the timeline. A faint nervousness lies just under the surface, not guilt, but uncertainty. Maybe they heard something they brushed aside. Well, maybe they overlooked a moment that mattered. The investigator senses the neighbor is holding a memory that hasn't yet found its shape. A recollection waiting to sharpen into something clearer. The coworker's tone holds something different. Less confusion, more concern. They recall brief moments from recent weeks. Long pauses during conversations, forced smiles hiding quiet tension, and sudden changes in routine that didn't fit the gentle predictability the family was known for. None of it seemed urgent then, only strange. Now, every memory becomes sharper, carrying weight the coworker didn't recognize before. The investigator listens closely, sensing a pattern emerging, something that ties daily habits to a growing unease. Whatever the family faced, it didn't appear overnight. It crept in gradually, shaping their final morning before sealing their silence. The relative sits quietly at first, holding the weight of unspoken thoughts. When they finally speak, the words come slowly, shaped by fear and regret. They recall a conversation that lingered for days, a message filled with worry the family never explained. There were hints of something troubling them, something they couldn't name. The investigator listens without interrupting, feeling the air grow heavier with each detail. These weren't signs of danger, but signs of pressure, of a growing tension the family tried to manage alone. It wasn't an enemy they feared. It was the unknown. Their silence now feels intentional, like an attempt to shield someone from a truth they never had the chance to share. When the investigator steps away from the interviews, she begins laying out every clue, side by side. The stories differ, the angles shift, but one subtle thread connects them all. A quiet tension that touched each member of the family in different ways. Something unsettled them, not enough to raise alarms, but enough to twist their routines. A silent unease spread through their days like a shadow that grew longer with every sunrise. None of the suspects stand out, yet every detail points to the same conclusion. Whatever happened to the family wasn't random. It was woven, carefully, silently, and with a purpose that now begins to surface. The investigator stands in the quiet home and rewinds the morning inside her mind, piecing together every detail until the timeline begins to breathe again. She sees the last conversations, the calm routines, the moments of hesitation that seemed too small to matter at the time. Each tiny break in pattern now forms a stepping stone across the unknown. She traces the minutes, then the seconds, back to the narrow window where everything changed. The more she focuses, the clearer it becomes that the disappearance didn't begin outside the house or after anyone left. It began in the stillness between two calls, an interruption so brief and so silent that no one could have noticed. The truth is close now, hovering like a whisper on the edge of memory. The investigator narrows the timeline to the smallest frame. 8 minutes between two calls. 8 minutes that should have held nothing unusual. But the objects left behind tell a different story. Unfinished toast, half-written notes. Movements paused, as if interrupted mid-thought. She senses that whatever happened didn't take force. It took precision. Each clue feels rehearsed, as though someone studied the family's habits until they knew exactly when to slip between them. The missing 12 seconds on the camera sits like a door left open at the wrong time. What happened was not chaos. It was timing. And the investigator realizes something chilling. Whoever, or whatever, intervened didn't need more than those 8 quiet minutes to erase an entire family. As she cross-checks the morning's sounds, messages, footprints, and echoes, the investigator finally sees the pattern forming. The faint noise shared across both phone calls wasn't random. It was the first sign of something entering the house. The shadow in the driveway isn't a trick of light. It's the second sign of something leaving. The planner page placed far from home wasn't lost. It was planted. Each clue bends toward the same truth. Someone walked through that morning with a plan stitched so tightly that the family barely noticed. Their final moments weren't loud. They were quiet. Soft breaths, small movements, a shift of air. Something slipped in, timed between heartbeats, and led the family away before anyone could react. The investigator stands in the quiet house, letting the truth settle. The family didn't run. They didn't fight. They didn't call for help. They followed something, or someone, they trusted. Something familiar enough to silence fear, yet unknown enough to erase them without leaving traces. She pictures the final seconds. A soft knock, a quiet word, a slight gesture. Something that made them rise from their routines and step willingly into a moment that should never have existed. The truth is haunting in its simplicity. They vanished because something timed the moment perfectly. Something moved with them, through them, and finally away from the house, leaving normal life standing behind like an empty shell. The investigator returns to the driveway one last time. The morning light looks the same as it did in the footage, soft and quiet, refusing to reveal what it witnessed. She stands in the stillness, feeling the weight of unanswered truth pressing around her. The family's faces, their moments, their routines, they all point to a single haunting realization. Each clue was placed, each second chosen, each movement shaped with intent. But the one question that remains is the one she cannot escape. The one that sits like a whisper at the back of her mind. Someone knew exactly when to cross the boundary between the 2 phone calls. Someone knew the perfect moment to make a family disappear. And the chilling question now pulses through her thoughts. Who else were they waiting for?